thing I have ever seen before. Dei leaned closer to the screen, her eyes widening. As the university's expert on Korean mythology, she had spent years studying the ancient burial grounds. Ji-woo, she said slowly, do you know what those burial mounds were used for besides burials? He shook his head. They were said to be doorways, she said, pulling out her tablet and quickly finding an old drawing. Look at this pattern from a 1,000-year-old scroll. Ji-woo's mouth fell open. The pattern in the ancient drawing matched the energy waves on his screen perfectly. We need to go there, Daha said firmly. Right now. 3 hours later, they stood at the edge of the burial mound site. The grassy hills rose from the ground like sleeping giants. Ji-woo held his portable detector, watching the numbers climb higher and higher. The energy is stronger here, he muttered, walking slowly toward the largest mound. Much stronger. Dei followed close behind him, taking pictures with her tablet. The air felt different here, heavier somehow, like the moment before a storm. A cold wind blew across the grass, making them both shiver despite the warm spring day. There, Ji-woo pointed at the base of the largest mound. A soft blue light seemed to flicker there, barely visible in the daylight. As they watched, the light grew stronger, pulsing in the same rhythm as the energy readings. Dei pulled out an old book from her bag and flipped through it quickly. Ji-woo, she whispered, these lights. They're exactly like the ones described in the Goryeo dynasty records. They called them spirit lights, signs that the doorway to the spirit world was opening. Suddenly, Ji-woo's detector began beeping wildly. The blue light at the mound's base grew brighter, spreading out like water. Both scientists stepped back as the light formed a perfect circle on the ground. That's not possible, Ji-woo said, checking his readings again. The energy levels are off the charts. Then they heard it, a sound like distant bells, coming from inside the mound. The blue circle of light began to spin slowly, creating patterns that looked like ancient Korean symbols. We need to document everything, Dei said, her hands shaking as she recorded video with her tablet. This could change everything we know about. She never finished her sentence. A beam of bright white light shot up from the circle into the sky, so bright they had to shield their eyes. When they could see again, the burial mound looked normal, but Ji-woo's detector was still beeping frantically. Look, Dei pointed at her tablet screen. The video she had taken showed clear images of symbols floating in the light, symbols that matched ancient descriptions of messages from the spirit world. As they stared at the video in amazement, both scientists' phones began ringing at the same time. On the other end of Ji-woo's call, a shaky voice told him that similar lights had just appeared at burial mounds all across Korea. Something that had been sleeping for centuries was waking up, and Ji-woo and Dei were the first to witness its return. Neither of them knew it yet, but this was just the beginning. The boundary between science and myth was about to disappear, and humanity would never be the same. To make our first meeting easier. We have watched humanity through these gates for thousands of years. Now, it is time for us to meet properly. The defense minister stepped forward. Why have you chosen to contact us now? Because you're scientists. The being's eyes seemed to look directly at Jiwu and Dai. Have finally discovered the true nature of your burial mounds. They are not just graves. They are windows we created long ago to watch over your development. Jiwu felt his heart racing. His quantum detector hadn't just found random energy. It had discovered alien observation posts hidden in ancient Korean monuments. We request a meeting, the being said, in person, at the Great Mound of Gyeongju, where the first contact was made. We will arrive in 6 hours. The screen went dark. The room erupted in chaos again. Hours later, Ji-woo and Dae stood with a group of officials at the burial mound. Military vehicles surrounded the area. Soldiers stood ready, though nobody knew if weapons would work against beings who could travel through spirit gates. Right on time, the blue light appeared again. This time, it spread wider, forming a doorway of light. 3 beings stepped through, each wearing those strange starlight robes. Up close, they looked even more like the ancient drawings of Korean celestial spirits. We have chosen these forms with care, the leader said, walking forward. Your ancestors recorded our previous visits in their art and stories. They called us gods and spirits, but we are simply travelers from far away. Why did you watch us through the burial mounds? Dae asked, her voice steady despite her fear. The being turned to her. Your Korean ancestors built these mounds on special points where the fabric of space is naturally thin. They knew, somehow, that these places were special. We simply used what they built as windows to observe. But why Korea? Someone else asked. Why not use monuments in other places? We did, the second being said. But the Korean spiritual traditions, especially your shamanic practices, showed a unique understanding of the universe's true nature. Your ancestors could sense us watching. Some could even communicate with us, though they didn't understand what we really were. Jiwoo stepped forward. What do you want from us now? The third being, who had been quiet until now, spoke. We need your help. Something is coming. Something that your ancestors helped us fight long ago. The old stories of demons and evil spirits were not just myths. They were memories of real battles. The barriers between dimensions are weakening, the leader added. The ancient enemies are trying to break through. We thought humans were too primitive to help us fight them again. But then we detected your quantum scanner, Dr. Han. It showed us that humans have finally begun to bridge the gap between science and spirit. Everyone stared at the beings in shock. The old myths were real. The ancient battles were real. And now, these advanced aliens needed humanity's help. Will you help us? The leader asked, extending a hand that glowed like moonlight. Will you join us in protecting not just Earth, but all reality? Jiwoo and Dae looked at each other. Everything they thought they knew about science, history, and reality had just changed. But one thing was clear. Humanity was about to take its place among the stars, not as servants or students, but as warriors against an ancient evil. back at Sungmin. "Show us," they said together. Sungmin took a deep breath and began to move. His hands traced the patterns he'd learned from his grandmother, his feet following the steps of dances older than written history. As he moved, the air around him began to glow. "Impossible," Jiwu whispered, checking his quantum detector. "He's generating the same energy patterns as the aliens." The celestial watchers watched in amazement as Sungmin completed the ritual dance. The lead alien stepped forward and held out a small device that looked like a glowing crystal. "Touch this," it said. Sungmin placed his hand on the crystal. It lit up instantly, projecting a huge map of the galaxy into the air above them. Everyone gasped. "In all our travels," the second alien said, "no other species has been able to activate our technology this way. Your ritual movements match our own energy patterns perfectly." Dae rushed forward with her tablet. "Look at this," she said, showing them an ancient scroll. "The dance Sungmin just did. It's identical to these drawings from 3,000 years ago." The third alien examined the drawings carefully. "Now we understand," it said softly. "Your ancestors didn't just see us through the spirit gates. They learned from us. They turned our energy patterns into dances and passed them down through generations of shamans." "But why didn't you tell us this before?" the defense minister asked. "We didn't know," the lead alien replied. "We thought humans had lost all connection to the old knowledge. We thought your spiritual practices were just ceremonies. But they're not. They're ancient technology, preserved in movement and memory." Sungmin nodded. "My grandmother told me our dances held power. She said that one day the star people would return and our family's knowledge would be needed again." The aliens turned to the officials. "This changes everything," they said. "The young shaman's abilities prove that humans haven't lost their ancient powers. They've just been sleeping, waiting to be awakened." "What does this mean?" Jiwu asked, still staring at his readings in disbelief. "It means," the lead alien said, "that humanity is far more ready to help us than we thought. Your shamanic traditions didn't just preserve our energy patterns, they kept alive the very skills we'll need to fight what's coming." Sungmin stood straighter, feeling the weight of generations of knowledge in his bones. "My grandmother said evil would try to enter our world again. She said our family kept the old ways alive for this moment." The celestial watchers bowed to him, actually bowed, making everyone gasp again. "Your grandmother was wise," they said. "Now we must teach you how to use your inherited knowledge. The dances you know are just the beginning. There are more patterns, more powers, waiting to be remembered." As the sun set behind the burial mound, Sungmin looked at the aliens, then at Jiwu and Dae. Science and spirit, past and future, earth and stars, all were coming together. His grandmother had been right. The time had come to wake up the old powers. "Many dimensions," the lead alien said. "They fed on fear and pain. Your ancestors helped us trap them between dimensions. But now, the barriers are failing." Sungmin stepped forward. The old stories speak of demons that were locked away by ancient heroes. Are you saying those stories are real? Yes, all three aliens said together. Your ancestors weren't just helping us watch. They were warriors who helped us fight. Jai Wu checked his quantum detector. The energy coming from those tears. It's similar to what I detected at the burial mounds, but twisted somehow. Wrong. Correct, the lead alien said. The barriers are weakening because the evil ones have grown stronger. They feed on dark emotions. Fear, hate, greed. And there is much of that in the universe now. The defense minister stood up. How can we help? Our weapons. Your normal weapons will not work, the second alien interrupted. But you have other powers. Sungmin has shown us that. The aliens turned to face everyone in the room. We need to test humanity's readiness, they said. We have a challenge for you. They pointed to Sungmin. The shaman has shown that humans can still use the old powers. Now we need to see if others can learn them too. What kind of test? Jigu asked. The lead alien held up its crystal again. This time, it showed a small tear in space, floating above a city in Japan. A minor evil one will break through here in 7 days, it said. Your task is to stop it. 7 days. Dea looked worried. How can we learn enough in 7 days? We will teach you, the third alien said. But first, you must gather the right people. You need those who can bridge the old and new ways. Some men nodded slowly. I know someone, he said. A former soldier who became a Buddhist monk. He understands both fighting and spiritual power. Good, the alien said. Find more like him. You will need warriors, scholars, and those who walk between worlds. The lead alien looked at each person in the room. If you pass this test, we will share more of our knowledge with humanity. If you fail, it didn't need to finish. Everyone could see the dark shapes in the image, still pressing against the barriers between worlds. We won't fail, some men said firmly. My grandmother's stories say that humans were meant to be guardians. It's time we remembered how. Jawu and Deye stood beside him. We'll help, they said together. Science and spirit working as one. The aliens nodded, looking pleased. 7 days, they repeated. To learn the old ways, to gather your team, to remember what humanity once was. 7 days to prove that Earth is ready to fight again. As everyone left the temple, some men looked at the setting sun. Somewhere out there, a piece of ancient evil was about to break free. And somehow, they had to stop it. Well, he said to Ji Wu and Dai, let's go find ourselves a warrior monk. Backpack. Then we better start training, he said. They set up their training ground in an old courtyard behind the main temple. The celestial watchers brought their strange devices, and some men drew sacred symbols on the ground. Jun-Ho stood in the middle, looking at the small group gathered around him. To fight these demons, he said, we must become more than what we are. Some men, show us the sacred movements again. As some men performed the ritual dance, Jun-Ho watched carefully. Then he did something amazing. He copied the movements perfectly, but added something to them. Quick, sharp motions that looked like martial arts strikes. The old ways and the new together, he said. Like this. He moved through the pattern again, and this time the air around him began to glow, just like it had for Sungmin. Incredible, one of the aliens said. He has merged your spiritual patterns with combat techniques. For the next 5 days, they trained without stopping. Jun-Ho taught them how to move, how to focus their minds, how to feel the energy flowing around them. Sungmin showed them the old rituals, while Ji-Woo and Dae worked to understand how their science could help. Your quantum detector, Jun-Ho said to Ji-Woo on the 4th day. It doesn't just measure energy. It can help us see where the barriers are weak. Science and spirit working together. They practiced with the aliens' crystal devices too. These tools could strengthen their powers, but only if they moved in the right ways. The crystals respond to the patterns in your movements, the aliens explained. They amplify what is already inside you. Young Minji, a tech expert the government had sent, learned fastest after Sungmin. It's like coding, she said, but with your whole body. Each movement is like a line of code that makes things happen in the real world. But it wasn't easy. Everyone got tired. Some wanted to give up. That's when Jun-Ho would tell them stories. Stories about his time in the special forces, about finding peace in the temple, about learning that true strength comes from balance. The enemy we face feeds on fear and darkness, he said. But we have something they don't understand. The light of human spirit, made stronger by working together. On the last day of training, they all stood in the courtyard. Jun-Ho led them through the movements one final time. As they moved together, the air filled with light. The aliens' crystals glowed brighter than ever before. You are ready, the lead alien said. Tomorrow, when the barrier breaks in Japan, you will face your first real test. Jun-Ho looked at his tired but determined students. No, he said with a small smile. Tomorrow we face our first real victory. As night fell over the temple, they could all feel it. The power of old and new, of science and spirit, of strength and wisdom, all flowing together. Tomorrow would bring their greatest challenge. But today, they had become something new. Warriors who could fight with both body and soul. Burned in the temple. Your ancestors were warriors, the second alien explained. When we first met humans thousands of years ago, they showed a natural ability to fight dimensional creatures. We taught them how to use energy patterns, and they created dances and rituals to remember the moves. Dae pointed to different parts of the scroll. Look here, it shows the same basic movements in different styles, like they were teaching people different ways to remember the same fighting techniques. Minji, who had been quiet, suddenly spoke up. That's why my technology works so well with the old rituals. The patterns in computer code are like the patterns in the dances. They're both ways of making energy do what we want. Ji-Woo's quantum detector started beeping. He checked the readings and gasped. The energy patterns from our training. They match energy patterns found in every ancient temple, every sacred site around the world. The third alien nodded. Korean shamanic traditions kept these techniques most pure. They didn't hide the movements in complicated ceremonies. They passed them down exactly as they were taught, from teacher to student, parent to child. Some men sat down heavily. My grandmother told me our family's dances were special. She said we kept the old ways alive when others forgot. But she never said they were fighting techniques. Perhaps she didn't know, Jun-ho said kindly. The true meaning was lost over time. People kept doing the movements but forgot why they were so important. The lead alien pointed to the last drawing on the scroll. It showed people and aliens fighting side by side against dark creatures. This was the past, it said, and soon it will be the future again. But why did humans forget? Minji asked. Why did we stop fighting? The barriers between dimensions were strong for a long time, the second alien explained. There was no need to fight. The movements became rituals, ceremonies, dances. Only a few, like Korean shamans, kept practicing the original forms. Dae was still studying the scroll. There's something written here in very old Korean, she said. It says, when darkness returns, the warriors will remember. Science will meet spirit, and humanity will rise again. Everyone was quiet for a moment, thinking about what they had learned. Their spiritual practices, their sacred traditions, they weren't just ceremonies. They were weapons, passed down through generations, waiting to be used again. Tomorrow, Jun-ho said, standing up straight, we use what our ancestors taught us. We fight as they fought. Some men touched the scroll gently. My grandmother would be proud, he said. We're not just remembering the old ways. We're remembering who we really are. As night fell over the temple, they practiced their movements one last time. But now they saw them differently. Every step, every gesture was part of an ancient combat technique. They weren't just dancing or praying. They were preparing for battle. The next day, in Japan, they would face their first real enemy. But now they knew something important. Humans had fought these battles before, and they had won. Something began to crawl through. The creature was like a living shadow, with too many arms and eyes that glowed red. It pulled itself into their world, growing larger by the second. Now, Jun-ho shouted, Formation 1. The team moved together, just as they had practiced. Some men began the ancient dance, his movements creating patterns of light in the air. Jun-ho added the combat moves they had developed, making the light sharp and strong. The shadow creature hissed and backed away from the light, but then it struck out with its dark arms, trying to grab them. Minji, Dae called. Pattern 3. Minji typed quickly on her computer, activating the energy field they had set up around the shrine. The protective symbols some men had drawn began to glow. Jae-woo held up his quantum detector, pointing it at the creature. Its energy pattern is changing, he shouted. It's trying to adapt. The creature roared, a sound that made the ground shake. It swung its arms again, knocking Junho back. Everyone together. Junho called as he jumped back up. Remember the scroll. Science and spirit as one. They moved in perfect unity. Junho and Sungmin led the sacred combat moves. Minji's computers amplified the energy patterns. Jiwoo used his detector to track the creature's weak points. Da-A called out instructions from the ancient texts. The alien crystals at their belts began to glow brightly. The team's movements created a web of light that surrounded the shadow creature. The creature thrashed and fought, but every time it tried to break free, the humans adjusted their movements. Their light grew stronger. The shadow grew weaker. Final pattern. Junho shouted. They moved through the most powerful sequence they had learned, their bodies flowing like water, their energy sharp as swords. The shadow creature screamed. Its dark body began to break apart. With a sound like thunder, it collapsed in on itself and vanished. The tear in the air closed with a flash of light. Everyone stood still, breathing hard. They couldn't quite believe what they had just done. Well done, the lead alien said, stepping forward. Very well done indeed. We did it, Minji whispered, looking at her computer screens. We actually did it. Junho walked around, checking on everyone. Nobody was seriously hurt. Their training had protected them. The creature is gone, Jiwoo said, checking his detector. And the barrier is strong again. We sealed it properly. Some men helped Deva collect her books and scrolls. My grandmother told me stories about battles like this, he said. But I never thought I would fight in one myself. The celestial watchers gathered around them. This was a small test, they said. But you passed it perfectly. You showed that humans remember their ancient strength, and you proved that combining your modern knowledge with old wisdom makes you even stronger. As they packed up their equipment, the team could see people coming to check on the shrine. To normalize, nothing looked different. Nobody would know that an ancient evil had been defeated here. Get some rest, Junho told his team. This was just the beginning. There will be more battles to come. But they all smiled as they left the shrine. They had faced their first real test as warriors of science and spirit, and they had won. The power to see energy patterns, to move between dimensions, to fight creatures of darkness. Sungmin thought about his family's traditions. Is that why Korean shamans kept these abilities? Because we're descended from these first humans. Partly, the lead alien said. But it's more than that. All humans had these powers once. Most lost them over time. But some bloodlines, especially in Korea, kept them strong. Junho stood up and walked to the image. The meditation techniques in our temples, the martial arts moves passed down through generations, all came from those first abilities. The aliens finished. But something happened. The dark ones were locked away. The barriers became strong. Humans forgot their purpose. Minji was typing everything into her computer. But why did the Korean traditions stay so pure? Why didn't we forget like others did? The aliens created a new image showing ancient Korean kingdoms. Your ancestors made a choice, they explained. They decided to keep the old ways alive, no matter what. They knew the Dark Ones might return someday. The shamanic bloodlines, Daya said suddenly. They're not just spiritual leaders. They're the descendants of the original warriors. Yes, the aliens said. And not just shamans. Many Korean families carried small pieces of the old knowledge. Some remembered the movements. Others kept the ability to see energy patterns. Some passed down the power to heal. Jai-woo checked his detector again. That's why my quantum scanner works so well. Humans were made to detect these energies. We just forgot how to use our natural abilities. The lead alien nodded. Your science is helping you remember what you always could do. The machines you build are like training wheels, helping you relearn your forgotten powers. But now we need those powers again, Jun-ho said, because the barriers are breaking. Yes, the alien said. The Dark Ones have grown strong. They feed on the negative energy that fills much of the universe. Only humans have the natural ability to fight them. Some men thought about his grandmother's teachings. She always said our family had a great responsibility, that we were guardians of something important. Now I understand what she meant. The aliens looked at each of them in turn. You five represent the best of humanity's past and present. The warrior, the scientist, the shaman, the scholar, and the tech expert. Together, you bridge the gap between what humans were and what they can be again. What happens now? Minji asked. Now, the lead alien said, you must help awaken these abilities in others. Find those who still carry the old bloodlines. Train them in both ancient and modern ways. Dae was writing quickly in her notebook. We can compare old family records with energy sensitivity tests. Find people who don't even know they have these abilities. Jun-ho nodded. And I know other warrior monks who would understand this truth, who could learn to fight as we do. The aliens seemed pleased. The Dark Ones think humans are weak now, they said. They don't know that you're remembering who you really are, that you're waking up to your true purpose. As the team left the meeting, they felt different. They weren't just people who had learned to fight dimensional creatures. They were the descendants of ancient guardians created to protect all of reality. And now, finally, they were remembering their true power. Correctly, your natural energy patterns match the aliens' technology perfectly, like they were made for each other. Because they were, Minji added with a smile. We're just remembering how to use what was always inside us. The lead alien walked to the center of the courtyard. Everyone stopped to listen. 3 more dimensional tiers have been sealed this month, it announced. Thanks to teams trained here. The Dark Ones are learning that Earth is protected again. A cheer went up from the students. They had all heard about the first battle in Kyoto. Now new teams were fighting their own battles, protecting places all around the world. But sealing tiers isn't enough, Jun-ho said, standing up. The barriers between dimensions are still getting weaker. We need to do more. That's why we're here, the second alien said, appearing with its companion. It's time to take the next step. Humanity is ready to join us as equals. The third alien raised its crystal, creating a huge image above the courtyard. It showed a massive space station being built near Earth's moon. "This will be the new training center," it explained, "a place where humans can learn to be dimensional guardians again." "The station is built like Korean temples," Sung Min noticed, looking at the design. "Sacred geometry and modern engineering working together." "Yes," the alien said, "your ancient wisdom and new technology will work together there. Earth will become the center for training guardians from all across the galaxy." Day stood up, excited. "Other aliens will come here to learn from us. To learn how humans fight dimensional creatures." "They already are," the lead alien said. It waved its hand, and part of the image changed to show ships approaching Earth. "These are the first students from other worlds. They want to learn your ways of combining science and spirit." Junho looked at his team, the warrior monk, the shaman, the scientists, and the tech expert. They had come so far from that first strange discovery at the burial mound. Now they were teachers, helping others find their hidden powers. "What about the Dark Ones?" Minji asked. "Won't they try to stop us?" "Let them try," Sung Min said firmly. "Humanity remembers who we are now. We were made to be guardians, and this time, we won't forget." The aliens nodded, pleased. "The age of sleeping is over," they said. "The age of remembering has begun. Humanity will take its place among the stars not as newcomers, but as returning warriors." As the sun set over the temple, the courtyard filled with light from dozens of students practicing their moves. Each person there carried a piece of humanity's ancient power. Each one was learning to wake up abilities that had slept for thousands of years. The team stood together, watching their students train. They had started this journey trying to stop one-dimensional tear. Now they were helping humanity remember its true purpose: to guard the barriers between worlds, to fight the darkness, to protect all of reality. And this was just the beginning.